Now, let's start reading Roald Dahl's short story, Lamb to the Slaughter. Now, first of all, just by looking at the title, title is always important, so we should wonder what the words mean, and if we don't if we don't find a straightforward meaning, then perhaps the best thing to do is to brainstorm the words, the nouns or the adjectives. Yeah, we have the lamb, a lamb. Now, try and think about everything which is connected to lamb, to the word lamb. It could be Easter, it could be candor, purity, innocence. It's an animal. It could be connected to salvation. It could be connected to Jesus Christ, Easter, redemption, resurrection. And slaughter is quite the opposite. Slaughterhouse. It could be, an act of violence. Even sacrifice. So perhaps the words slaughter and lamb are united in the idea of sacrifice. Well, having said that, maybe you can explore the title on your own. But let's try and focus on the beginning. The first few words are always the most important ones because they set the tone of the narrative, and it is the first thing that the reader is about to read, and therefore, they are key to to creating the right atmosphere and the right introduction to the story. Okay, let's go on. The room was warm and clean, the curtains drawn, the two table lamps alight, hers and the one by the empty chair opposite. On the sideboard behind her, two tall glasses, soda water, whiskey, fresh ice cubes in the thermos bucket. Mary Maloney was waiting for her husband to come home from work. Now and again she would glance up at the clock, but without anxiety, merely to please herself with the thought that each minute gone by made it nearer the time when he would come. Now let's focus on the very first, this very first paragraph. I mean, it's not a paragraph. In the first 5 lines, let's put it that way. What do we see here? We see the inside of a house. The sentences are very short. The rhythm is very slow. There are lots of pauses, lots of commas. So the narrative proceeds very calmly, in a very tranquil way. We have the idea of, expectation. There is an empty chair opposite the chair occupied by Mary Maloney. So obviously Mary Maloney is waiting for someone. The room seems to be very sort of very neatly decorated. There are curtains which are drawn, so there's quite a privacy. Two table lamps are alight, so we may figure out that one table light is for Mary Maloney and the other is for the person she's waiting for. There's a sideboard with two tall glasses. Obviously, there are two glasses, one for her and one for the person she's expecting. Everything has been prepared nicely, so there are fresh ice cubes on the thermos bucket. And we understand now from the next sentence that Mary Maloney is waiting for her husband to come from work. Now and again she would glance up at the clock, so she's waiting. She knows he's coming. She's quite tranquil. She's not anxious. But she, here, merely to please herself with the thought that each minute gone by made it nearer the time when he would come. Now, this notation here makes us think that, she's willing to wait. She's just the perfect stereotype of 1950s wife, ready to serve her husband. But not committing sacrifice. She's just willing to do it. She likes it. And, so this is the presentation we have of the main character here. Now let's go on reading. There was a slow, smiling air about her. Even the sentence, think about the sounds, slow, smiling air. This idea that the atmosphere is very placid, is very tranquil, slow, smiling. Everything seems to uh, make us think that nothing will happen. It's a tranquil day, it's something usual, something ordinary, and so when a story, a short story, or any story begins in such a way, we begin to think that something may disrupt this tranquility. Something may be going on later on. So this is can be seen also a way of creating expectations, creating a sort of tension, narrative tension for what is to come. Let's go on reading. The drop of a head as she bent over her sewing was curiously tranquil. Her skin, for this was her 6 month with child, had acquired a wonderful translucent quality. The mouth was soft, and the eyes, with their new placid look, seemed larger, darker than before. Even here the sounds larger and darker. They just contribute to giving the idea that everything is so tranquil and placid and still. When the clock said 10 minutes to 5, she began to listen, and a few moments later, punctually as always, she heard the tires on the gravel outside, and the car door slamming, the footsteps passing the window, the key turning in the lock. She laid aside her sewing, stood up, and went forward to kiss him as he came in. "Hello, darling," she said. "Hello, darling," he answered. She took his coat and hung it in the closet. Then she walked over in her chair with the sewing, and he in the other, opposite, holding the tall glass with both hands, rocking it so the ice cubes tinkled against the side. For her, this was always a blissful time of day. She knew he didn't want to speak much until the first drink was finished, and she, on her side, was content to sit quietly, enjoying his company after the long hours alone in the house. She loved to luxuriate in the presence of this man, and to feel almost as a sunbather feels the sun when, sorry, that warm male glow that came out of him to her when they were alone together. So now, more information is given about the relationship between Mary Maloney and her husband. She obviously relies on her husband. She is again presented as a sort of a stereotype of a wife who is totally dedicated to the house, to her husband, maybe to the child that is about to be born. We are told she's pregnant, and she's probably enjoy her pregnancy. Her skin is beautiful. Um, also, uh, she likes being at the presence of her husband. There is a simile, the simile of a sunbather in the sun. It's as if she's like, again, here there are other stereotypes. The moon, which enjoys the power of the sun. So that the husband being the sun, and the woman, the wife, being the moon. So we do find these parallels, which are very much stereotypes. So let's go on reading. She loved him for the way he sat loosely in a chair, for the way he came in a door, or moved slowly across the room with long strides. She loved the intent, far look in his eyes when they rested on her, the funny shape of the mouth, and especially the way he remained silent about his tidiness, sitting still with himself until the whiskey had taken some of it away. Tired, darling? Yes, he said. I'm tired. And as he spoke, he did an unusual thing. He lifted his glass and drained it in one swallow, although there was still half of it, at least half of it left. She wasn't really watching him, but she knew what he had done because she heard the ice cubes falling back against the bottom of the empty glass when he lowered his arm. Okay, so here we see the first incident, the first thing that is against is disrupting the routine. Okay, he drinks his whiskey down in one, and she doesn't even look. She understands that because she hears, she hears the ice cubes tinkling at the bottom of the glass. Uh, he paused a moment, leaning forward in the chair. Then he got up and went slowly over to fetch himself another. I'll get it, she cried, jumping up. Sit down, he said. When he came back, she noticed that the new drink was dark amber with a quantity of whiskey in it. Darling, shall I get you slippers? No. She watched him as he began to sip the the dark yellow drink, and she could see little oily swells in the liquid because it was so strong. I think it's a shame, she said, that when a policeman gets to be as senior as you, they keep him walking about on his feet all day long. He didn't answer, so she bent her head again and went on with her sewing. But each time he lifted the drink to his lips, she heard the ice cubes clinking against the side of the glass. Darling, she said, would you like me to get you some cheese? I haven't made any supper because it's Thursday. No, he said. If you're too tired to eat out, she went on, it's still not too late. There's plenty of meat and stuff in the freezer, and you can have it right here, not even move out of the chair. Her eyes waited on him for an answer, a smile, a little nod, but he made no sign. Okay, now we see from his reaction, from that there is something that is deeply, um, deeply concerning him. She doesn't understand. She wants to help. She's being very nice to him. And again, here we have perfect stereotype of the housewife, the caring housewife. Anyway, she went on, I'll get some cheese and crackers first. I don't want it, he said. She moved uneasily in the chair, the large eyes still watching his face. But you must eat. I'll fix it anyway, and then you can have it or not, as you like. She stood up and placed her sewing on the table by the lamp. Sit down, he said. Just for a minute, sit down. It wasn't till then that she began to get frightened. Go on, he said. Sit down. She lowered herself back slowly in the chair, watching him all the time with those large, bewildered eyes. He had finished the second drink and was staring down into the glass, frowning. Listen, he said, I've got something to tell you. What is it, darling? What's the matter? He had now become absolutely motionless, and he kept his head down so that the light from the lamp beside him fell across the upper part of his face, leaving the chin and the mouth in a shadow. Now, this last particular here, we want to know what is going on. We want to know his words. We want to know what the husband has to say to Mary Maloney. But the narrator here introduces something, a description, something which does not bring about, more information. Uh, it's just it's as if he just wanted to create more expectations, more suspense, to delay uh, the moment in which he will reveal um, his issues to her. She noticed there was a little muscle moving near the corner of his left eye. "This is going to be a bit of a shock to you, I'm afraid," he said, "but I've thought about it a good deal, and I've decided the only thing to do is to tell you right away. I hope you won't blame me too much." And he told her. It didn't take long, 4 or 5 minutes most, and she sat, okay, she sat, there's a mistake here, very still through it all, watching him with a kind of dazed horror as he went further and further away from her with each word. "So there it is," he added, "and I know it's a kind of a bad time to be telling you, but there simply wasn't any other way. Of course, I'll give you money and see that you're looked after, but there needn't really be any fuss. I hope not, anyway. It wouldn't be very good for my job." Her first instinct was not to believe any of it. Okay, so we see here he's revealing everything to her, but we really don't know what's going on. We may assume that he will leave her. She's pregnant. That's the reference to the bedtime. And, he says that we'll give her money. And she's totally astonished. She can't, she doesn't believe. She doesn't believe that this is what he's up to. This is what he's saying. But it's really important, the way the narrator omits all the basic information. We don't know if he's going to go away with another woman, if he's going to leave her, because we don't know that. We can, it's almost, perhaps it's not even important. But then again, it's another trick that the author uses to keep up the tension, to maintain tension, narrative tension alive, very strong. Okay, we'll have to stop here and carry on another time.